Hello everyone, welcome to our channel. Today, I bring you a fascinating and emotional story that will capture your heart and make you reflect on the importance of truth in family relationships. Meet Victoria Sullivan, an heiress to a pharmaceutical empire, who experiences a terrifying ordeal in a luxurious restaurant in New York City. After a sudden allergic reaction, Victoria's life turns into a true nightmare, but a homeless man named Ethan Foster appears as her savior. Get ready for a narrative filled with twists, courage, and valuable lessons about overcoming challenges and redemption. Throughout the video, we will explore how the secrets of the Sullivan family shaped each of their destinies. And don't forget, while you watch, leave a comment letting us know which city you are tuning in from. Before we start, make sure to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to stay updated on all our exciting stories. Now, let's embark on this journey together. What happens when an unexpected act of heroism turns a simple dinner into a nightmare? The lives of Victoria Sullivan and Ryan Sullivan in New York are about to be unraveled in a web of mystery and deep emotions. During a night of celebration at a sophisticated restaurant, the tranquility is abruptly interrupted when Victoria collapses due to a severe allergic reaction. The sudden intervention of Ethan Foster, a homeless man who performs an emergency tracheotomy to save her, not only gives her a second chance but also puts him in the spotlight as a suspect in a terrible crime. Victoria has always been a determined woman, but behind her smile and professional success lay a sense of vulnerability that followed her. Since childhood, she dreamed of building a legacy that honored her family and helped others. However, the competitive environment of New York was relentless. While she tried to establish herself in the business world, she battled the ghosts of a past that haunted her, filled with family expectations and personal insecurities. The tragic event of that night casts a shadow over her dreams. The investigation into what really happened at the restaurant uncovers long-buried secrets, and Ryan, her younger brother, finds himself in a dilemma. He has always sought Victoria's approval, but the pressure to stand out and his unchecked ambition awaken jealousy that could lead to devastating consequences. The siblings' relationship transforms into an emotional battleground, as each confronts their flaws and desires. The initial interactions between Victoria and Ethan reveal a world of prejudices and judgments. He, a man on the fringes of society, and she, a respected businesswoman, seem to belong to opposite worlds. However, what begins as a meeting of necessity and desperation soon evolves into an unexpected bond. As Victoria recovers and reflects on what happened, she begins to question not only the nature of heroism, but also what it truly means to be human. Tension mounts as the investigation progresses, revealing that the poisoning may be linked to dark interests within Victoria's family business. The internal struggle between doing what is right and protecting her family leads her to a breaking point where the truth can no longer be ignored. The emotional impact of this situation not only shapes her decisions, but also challenges her beliefs about trust and loyalty. As family ties are tested, the story becomes a roller coaster of emotions. Victoria realizes that she must confront not only the truth about what happened, but also the truth about herself and her relationships. The transformation she seeks is not just about redemption, but an opportunity to heal deep wounds and restore trust among those she loves. As the climax of the narrative approaches, Victoria finds herself on a path of self-discovery. By deciding that it is time to make significant changes in her life and in the company, she seeks not only transparency but also reconciliation. What began as a nightmare transforms into a journey of hope, where the strength of truth and integrity becomes the foundation for a better future. Victoria Sullivan never thought that a simple night of celebration would become a turning point in her life. The restaurant was softly lit, with the sound of laughter and conversation in the background, creating a perfect atmosphere to celebrate her recent professional success. However, her world crumbled in seconds when she felt dizzy and, before she could comprehend what was happening, collapsed. When she woke up, chaos had taken over. The memory of Ethan Foster, a man she barely knew, performing an emergency tracheotomy haunted her. He had risked everything to save her, but the repercussions of that heroic act quickly turned into a nightmare. Authorities were now involved, and he, a homeless man, had become the prime suspect in a crime she couldn't understand. What had happened that night? The questions tormented her. While Victoria tried to process what had occurred, her brother, Ryan, struggled with an even deeper emotional turmoil. He had always admired Victoria, but the pressure he felt to be as successful as she was complicated everything. For Ryan, life in New York was a constant race for approval and respect. And now, with the investigation into the poisoning underway, he found himself in a dilemma. The need to protect his sister, while also dealing with his feelings of jealousy and inadequacy, weighed heavily on his shoulders. Tension was mounting as the investigations revealed that Victoria's family business might be involved in something much more sinister than a simple accident. While Victoria tried to focus on her recovery, she couldn't ignore the rumors circulating about her family. Her father, a respected businessman, and her mother, always so concerned about the family's image, were now at the center of a potential scandal. Victoria wondered if she really knew her own parents and if they were willing to do anything to protect what they had built. In this chaotic scenario, Victoria felt emotionally helpless. The pain of having her world turned upside down forced her to question her inner strength. She had always believed she could face any challenge, but now she felt lost, struggling against a sea of uncertainties. What was more important, protecting the family or seeking the truth? The idea of unmasking dark secrets terrified her, but the possibility of living a lie left her even more distressed. Ethan, on the other hand, was not just an unlikely hero. He also carried with him a life story full of hardships. Men and women like him were often labeled and forgotten by society, but his bravery in saving Victoria showed that he was much more than his current condition. The friendship that blossomed between them, though initially forced by the situation, began to develop slowly. Victoria saw in Ethan a strength she didn't know she needed. He challenged her to look beyond her own insecurities and prejudices. But as this friendship grew, new challenges also emerged. Society's distrust of Ethan weighed heavily on them, and judgmental gazes were constant. Meanwhile, Ryan found himself at a breaking point. He wanted to protect Victoria, but jealousy consumed him. The desire to be recognized as someone important, not just as the brother of the successful Victoria, led him to make rash decisions. He began getting involved in questionable activities in hopes of proving his worth, but this only deepened the divide between the siblings. The pressure to stand out and the need for approval were becoming increasingly suffocating. Victoria realized that, beyond the external challenges, the hardest battles were the ones happening within her and her family. The life lessons she had always considered valuable now seemed distant. What does it really mean to be strong? What is needed to rebuild trust? The journey to find these answers was just beginning, and the weight of the truth pushed her in unexpected directions. Amid all this, she couldn't ignore the fact that Ethan's life was at stake. If he were wrongfully convicted, guilt would consume her. With this in mind, she decided she needed to take action. The quest for truth would become her mission, even if it meant confronting the secrets her family held. The courage she had always admired in others now needed to emerge from within her. Victoria was about to discover that heroism was not limited to grand actions, but also included the courage to face one's own reality. Victoria felt a growing weight in her chest. The search for truth drove her. But with each step she took, new challenges emerged like shadows surrounding her. As she delved deeper into the investigation of that fateful night, she discovered that the poison that had affected her was a substance known to be used in corporate fraud. This made her question whether her own company was involved in something darker. The idea that her parents might be hiding secrets terrified her. How could she trust them if the life she knew was built on lies? As she tried to cope with the unsettling reality, Victoria realized that the emotional pressure was affecting her physical health. She couldn't sleep. Her nights were filled with nightmares, and the constant feeling of fear left her exhausted. The reflection in the mirror showed deep dark circles under her eyes and a face marked by worry. Each day felt like a battle, and the courage she once had to face challenges now seemed distant. Ryan, for his part, was sinking into a sea of insecurities. The tension between him and Victoria increased with every new development. He felt that while she was growing and becoming a respected woman, he was losing himself. The weight of family expectations, combined with the need to prove himself, led him to make poor decisions. When he started getting involved with a group of young people engaging in illicit activities, believing this would make him more interesting and respected, things became even more complicated. The late-night outings and dangerous encounters not only distanced him from Victoria, but also put him in risky situations that were hard to control. Family tensions became palpable. Conversations at home were filled with awkward silences and furtive glances. Victoria's parents, who had always been her pillars, now seemed further away than ever. She tried to open up to them, but always found evasive answers and a defensiveness that left her even more confused. It was as if they were trying to protect not only themselves but also the family's image. And with that, the idea of trust became increasingly difficult to sustain. Ethan, who initially seemed to be an ally in her quest for truth, was also facing his own battles. Society labeled him a criminal, even after his heroic act. He felt the weight of injustice, and this affected his friendship with Victoria. Although their connection had grown, he became increasingly reserved. Victoria realized that, in times of crisis, he fought against his internal demons, questioning his own worth. Their friendship was becoming a tightrope, with each of them struggling to stay balanced amid the chaos surrounding them. Victoria tried to get closer to him, to share her anxieties and fears, but Ethan shut himself off. Frustration consumed her, as she felt she was losing the only person who truly understood her. She found herself in a dilemma. Should she respect his space or insist on helping him face his own demons? With each passing day, their friendship seemed more at risk, and the thought of losing Ethan left her desperate. The climax of this tension came on a rainy night. Victoria decided to confront her parents about the suspicions that were tormenting her. The dinner, which was supposed to be an opportunity for dialogue, quickly turned into a battleground. The revelation that she knew about the shady dealings of the company made her father lose his composure. The argument intensified, and the cutting words exchanged left deep scars. Victoria felt betrayed and alone, her world crumbling as she realized that the truth she had sought could be more devastating than she imagined. However, amid the chaos, an idea began to germinate in her mind. If her family was indeed involved in something illegal, perhaps she could use that to her advantage. The determination to protect Ethan and uncover the truth about herself took shape. This decision, though risky, represented a rebirth for Victoria. She was about to become not only the heroine of her own story, but also the voice that could unmask the corruption in her life. Meanwhile, Ryan was about to make a choice that could alter the course of his life. In a moment of clarity, he realized that the path he was on would lead him to an even deeper abyss. The idea of losing his sister forever awakened him to the reality of his actions. He needed to choose between pride and family, and in those dark hours, the light of redemption seemed closer than ever. The journey of Victoria and Ryan was just beginning, and what awaited them could very well shape their lives forever. The rain fell in torrents, pounding against the windows of Victoria's house, a sound that mingled with the emotional turmoil she felt within. After the explosive argument with her parents, the young woman was engulfed in deep confusion. She stepped away from the table, her thoughts swirling like a tempest. What else were they hiding from her? What more could she discover if she dug deeper? The weight of the revelation that her family might be involved in fraud paralyzed her. The idea that everything she had believed about them could be a facade left her in shock. It was as if the ground beneath her feet had opened up, and she was about to fall into an abyss of uncertainties. Victoria knew she needed answers, but whom could she turn to? The only people who had always been her safe haven now seemed to be part of the problem. It was in this moment of despair that a message came through on her phone. It was Ethan. He wanted to meet, and despite her initial instinct to hesitate, a spark of hope ignited within her. If there was anyone who could understand the pain and confusion she felt, it was him. Victoria quickly got ready and left, the rain now feeling more like a blessing than a burden. When she arrived at the meeting point, a nearly deserted park, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Ethan was waiting for her, his expression closed off and shoulders slumped. His gaze, usually so vibrant, was now dark and distant. As she approached, Victoria realized he was struggling with his own demons, which made her feel an even stronger connection. "Ethan," she began, her voice trembling, "I need to talk to you. I feel so lost." He interrupted her, his voice low and hesitant. "Victoria, I don't know if I can help. Things are complicated for me too." She felt a pang of pain in her heart. The friendship that had always been a refuge now felt threatened. "I know you're going through hardships, but I'm facing something much bigger. I found out my family might be involved in something illegal, and I don't know who to trust. You're the only one who really understands what I'm feeling." Ethan's expression softened for a moment, but soon hardened again. "What if I'm not the right person to help you? What if I know more than I'm willing to admit?" His words hit her like a punch to the stomach. Victoria realized that his own problems were reflecting his insecurities. "Please, don't pull away from me. I can't lose you too," she pleaded, emotion spilling over in her voice. In that instant, something inside Ethan broke. He turned away, looking down at the ground covered with wet leaves. "Victoria, I've gotten involved in things I regret. I thought I could find a better path, but I only sank deeper. I'm not who you think I am." His confession was a shock. The idea that Ethan, someone she had always admired for his courage, was lost in a world of bad choices made her see reality differently. "You're not alone, Ethan. We can face this together. We need each other." Ethan lifted his gaze, the vulnerability in his eyes making Victoria's heart race. But before he could respond, a group of young people appeared, laughing and making noise. Ethan's face closed off, and he looked down, embarrassed. It was evident they were part of the complicated circle he was trying to escape. "I can't stay here," he said quickly, turning to leave. "If you find out anything, if you discover more, don't look for me. I can't drag you into this." Victoria felt a growing despair within her. "Ethan, please." But he was already pulling away, disappearing into the darkness of the night. Loneliness enveloped her like a heavy cloak. That moment of connection, so close to becoming a rebirth, had now turned into an open wound. Sitting on an empty bench, Victoria felt tears streaming down her face. What was success if her life was falling apart? What did the perfect image of her family matter if it was built on lies? The revelation that Ethan was also fighting his own demons made her realize that perhaps everyone around her was dealing with their own flaws, just like she was. The pain of rejection and loneliness forced her to confront her own choices. Victoria understood that the battle was not only against her family's secrets, but also against the insecurities that consumed her. She needed to find herself again. And this journey would require more strength and courage than she ever thought she had. With a new purpose rising within her, Victoria got up and decided she could not let her fears imprison her. It was time to confront not only her family, but also the truth about herself. The road ahead would be difficult, but it was this challenge that could lead her to true freedom. And who knows, perhaps to a reunion with Ethan, not as lost friends, but as allies, fighting together in search of the truth. Victoria walked back home, her feet heavy and her mind in turmoil. The rain had lessened, but the sky was still filled with dark clouds that reflected her emotional state. She felt as if she were traversing an endless tunnel, unsure of what awaited her on the other side. The image of Ethan walking away, his eyes filled with pain, replayed in her mind like a constant echo. The weight of rejection pressed down on her, but the determination not to be defeated was also beginning to rise. Upon entering her home, silence enveloped her. The dim light in the living room illuminated the shadows dancing on the walls, and Victoria realized that the familiar atmosphere now felt strange and oppressive. Her parents were in the kitchen, talking in hushed tones, and when they heard the door open, they fell silent abruptly. The tension in the air was palpable, and she felt a chill run down her spine. What else were they hiding from her? She sat down at the table and took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts. The conversation she had with Ethan echoed in her mind. He was lost too, and that made her question whether she could truly trust anyone. The desire to seek answers about her family grew stronger with each passing second, but the fear of what she might discover paralyzed her. What would happen if everything she believed was indeed a lie? She decided she needed to take action. The first thing she would do was confront her parents, but she couldn't do that without a strategy. Victoria began to think of questions she needed to ask, how she could express her doubts without sounding accusatory. The idea of confrontation made her nervous, but it was a necessity she could no longer ignore. The next morning, the sun shone timidly through the clouds, and Victoria felt a little stronger. She prepared for the day, but anxiety accompanied her. At school, everything seemed normal, but she couldn't focus on her classes. The words of her teachers sounded distant, and her friendships became a mere backdrop to the confusion in her mind. During the break, she found Sarah, a close friend. Sarah was someone she had always trusted, and Victoria decided it might be time to share a bit of her pain. Have you ever had the feeling that something isn't right in your life? Like there are secrets you don't know? She asked hesitantly. Sarah looked at her with curiosity. Sometimes, Yes. But you have to remember that everyone has their own problems. What's happening with you? Victoria hesitated, but the need to vent pushed her forward. I found out that my family might be involved in bad things. I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm losing control of everything. Sarah's expression changed, and she took Victoria's hand. That must be very difficult. But you're not alone. If you need help, you can count on me. Sarah's words were like a balm to her soul. Victoria realized that even amidst the confusion, there were still people who cared. But the conversation made her think, were the people around her also dealing with their own secrets? The idea intrigued her and made her feel that, in some way, everyone was in this struggle together. That day, Victoria began to pay attention to the small interactions around her. She noticed how her classmates whispered and exchanged furtive glances, as if they were guarding secrets that would never be revealed. The feeling that life was more complex than it appeared enveloped her. She decided she needed to be more observant, not just regarding her family, but about everyone. On her way home, courage grew inside her. She knew the confrontation with her parents was approaching, and as she walked, she began to rehearse her questions in her mind. What does it really mean to be in a family? How could she be part of something that could be so illusory? The uncertainty consumed her, but the determination to seek the truth kept her moving. Upon arriving home, she found her parents in the living room, looking tense. Victoria's heart raced, but she took a deep breath and prepared for what was to come. "We need to talk," she said, her voice firm but filled with emotion. Her parents exchanged glances, and she realized it was time to face the storm that was brewing. The answer she sought could be painful, but she was ready to confront any truth, no matter how frightening it might be. The journey was just beginning, and despite the obstacles still to come, Victoria felt a new light within her, a fuel that would propel her forward. She was not ready to give up. The search for truth would be her new battle, and if she had to fight alone, she would do so with courage. The consequences of her decision were starting to unfold, and regardless of the outcome, she knew that the truth, no matter how painful it might be, was her only path to freedom. Victoria sat at the table in the living room, her heart pounding. The silence that hung in the air felt heavier than the clouds covering the sky. Her parents were in front of her, and she knew the moment she had feared had finally arrived. The tension was palpable, but there was something new within her, a flame of determination that hadn't existed before. "We need to talk," she said, her voice firm, trying to hide the tremor she still felt. Her parents exchanged glances, and Victoria noticed that the concern etched on their faces only fueled her courage. It was time to set aside the fear that had accompanied her for so long. "About what, dear?" her mother asked, her voice soft yet trembling. Victoria took a deep breath, feeling the fresh air fill her lungs. It was now or never. "About Ethan, and about us. I feel like there are things you haven't told me," she began, the sincerity in her words resonating in the room. "I feel like there are secrets surrounding us. What is happening?" Her father narrowed his eyes and leaned back in his chair, as if preparing for a battle. "Victoria, sometimes there are things that are better left unsaid to protect those we love." "Protect or hide the truth?" Victoria shot back, her voice rising in intensity. She felt that each word she spoke brought her closer to the freedom she so desired. "I need to know who I am. The truth may hurt, but living a lie is even worse." The silence that followed was deafening. Her parents seemed to be struggling against the words that were about to come out. Victoria felt time dragging on, but she would not back down. The fear that once paralyzed her was now transforming into strength. She was ready to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Finally, her father broke the silence. "You're right, Victoria. There are things we haven't told you because we didn't know how. Your family, it's not as simple as it seems. There are stories and choices that shaped who we are and who you are." Victoria felt a wave of emotions. Frustration mixed with curiosity. "What are you hiding from me?" "I deserve to know." Her mother looked into her eyes, and for the first time, she saw a vulnerability she hadn't noticed before. "We are trying to protect you from a past that we thought was better left behind. But you deserve the truth, even if it means facing what is hidden." Her mother's words were like a ray of light in the darkness. Victoria realized that despite the fear, her parents were willing to open the door to the truth. And she, in turn, was beginning to understand that facing challenges was part of growth. I don't want you to protect me anymore. I want to understand. I want to help rebuild our story. Victoria's determination surprised her parents. She had transformed. The fear that once consumed her was now fuel propelling her to seek the truth. As the conversation unfolded, she began to realize that strength came not just from within, but also from the love and honesty they shared. With each revelation, the image of her family became more complex but also more real. Victoria began to understand that everyone faced their own demons, and it was vulnerability that united them. By opening her heart, she allowed her friendship with Sarah to strengthen. Her friend's support had become an anchor, and now, as she dealt with her own storm, she knew she was not alone. The lessons Victoria was learning were not just about her family, but about herself. She allowed herself to trust, to accept help, and, above all, to understand that true wealth lies not just in material things, but in the genuine connections formed throughout life. Each challenge she faced became an opportunity for growth, and the difficulties only made her stronger. As the conversation progressed, Victoria felt a new perspective forming within her. What once seemed a burden was now a chance to start over. The truth, while painful, was also liberating. By confronting her fears and embracing reality, she was transforming into someone stronger, wiser, and more prepared to face the world. At the end of the conversation, Victoria looked at her parents and smiled. "We're in this together. Let's face whatever comes as a family." And in that moment, she knew that life, with all its uncertainties, was also filled with possibilities. The journey was just beginning, and she was ready to embrace the future with courage and hope. Victoria felt the weight of the revelation about to happen. Her heart raced, but determination grew with every breath. It was time to confront what terrified her most. The truth about her family, and, more importantly, about herself. She was tired of living in shadows and wanted the light, even if it meant confronting the secrets surrounding her. Her parents' gazes were fixed on her, expectation mixed with fear. "What's going on with Ethan? Why is he so important in this story?" Victoria asked, her voice steady, but with a slight tremor she couldn't control. The mention of Ethan's name seemed to cause a wave of tension in the room, as if the walls had ears and were listening intently. Victoria's father took a deep breath, his gaze distant. "Ethan is not just a friend, Victoria. He is part of something bigger, something that involves our family in ways you can't even imagine." His words hit like a bomb, and Victoria felt her stomach drop. What could be so serious? Curiosity consumed her, but the fear of discovering the truth was equal to her desire to know it. Victoria's mother, with tears in her eyes, spoke up. "When you were born, there were many expectations about you. We didn't want you to feel pressured to fulfill a legacy you didn't choose. We decided to keep you away from all of that, but Ethan, he has always been around, even when we didn't realize it." Her voice was soft, but laden with regret. Victoria felt a knot forming in her throat. The life she knew was about to change. "What are you saying? That I am part of something I don't understand? That I don't have the freedom to choose my own path?" Frustration overflowed, and she stood up, starting to pace back and forth in the room. The walls seemed to close in around her, and the pressure mounted. "Victoria, that's not what we mean," her father said, standing up as well. "We want you to have the freedom to be who you are, but we need you to understand the weight of our choices." The tension escalated, and the room was filled with unspoken emotions. The faces of her parents were marked by suffering, and Victoria realized they also carried their own battles. She stopped, facing them. "But I don't know who I am. How can I be myself if I don't know what is hidden? If Ethan is part of who we are, then I want to know him. I want to understand." The determination in her voice echoed through the room, and her parents' eyes sparkled with newfound hope. "Then let's do it together," her mother said, her voice firmer now. "Let's face this as a family. If you wish to know the truth, then we need to talk about Ethan and what he represents for all of us." Victoria felt a sense of relief, as if a barrier had been broken. The fear was still present, but now there was a light at the end of the tunnel. Victoria's parents began to share the story they had kept hidden. It was about difficult choices, about the struggle to protect their daughter from a past that could be painful. They spoke about how Ethan was more than a friend. He was part of a network of connections that tied their family to a legacy they could not ignore. And as the words flowed, Victoria felt stronger, the pain transforming into understanding. She realized she was not alone on this journey. Each revelation brought her closer to her parents and, ultimately, to the truth about herself. The tears falling from her mother's eyes were not just of sadness but of relief. The truth was heavy, but it was also liberating. Victoria understood that life was not just about successes or failures, but about choices and how they shaped who we are. The conversation took time, but each word was a step toward healing. Together, they faced the past, and at the same time, began to build a new future. Victoria felt that her friendship with Sarah also blossomed in this context. She had learned to trust and open her heart. The friendship that once seemed simple was now an anchor in her life, an unconditional support. At the end of the conversation, with a light heart and a clear mind, Victoria looked at her parents and smiled. "We're in this together. Let's face whatever comes our way as a family." It was a pact, a promise that the truth would be the foundation of their new relationship. And by confronting her fears, she knew she was becoming someone stronger, wiser, ready to embrace the future with courage and hope. It was a new era, and she was ready to venture forth. Victoria felt a mix of relief and anxiety as her parents' words echoed in her mind. The weight of the truth that had been revealed was now transforming into a new understanding of who she was and the legacy surrounding her. The room, once filled with tension, felt lighter, as if the air had been purified. Her parents watched her with a gaze that mixed hope and concern. They knew the journey to accept the truth would not be easy, but it was a necessary step. After the conversation, the family decided it was time to meet Ethan. Victoria felt butterflies in her stomach at the thought of him. What would he say? How would he react upon learning that their friendship was linked to such a complicated past? The uncertainties swirled in her mind, but the determination to face this new reality was stronger. When they arrived at the park where they used to meet, Victoria saw Ethan sitting on a bench, his gaze lost in thought. He looked up as she approached, and a shy smile appeared on his face. But upon noticing Victoria's more serious expression, the joy was replaced by concern. "Hi, Vic. What happened?" he asked, his voice filled with worry. Victoria took a deep breath. "We need to talk, Ethan. About us and about my family." She hesitated, remembering the conversation with her parents, but the urgency made her continue. "I found out that you are part of something bigger, something that involves my past and our bond." Ethan watched her closely, his expression shifting from confusion to understanding. "I suspected there was something more." "What do you know?" She spoke about the revelation, about how her parents tried to protect her from a legacy she didn't understand. Ethan listened in silence, and with each of her words, his expression grew more serious. In the end, he let out a deep sigh. "I am part of this too, Victoria. My grandfather and your parents were friends. They made promises that now, in some way, connect us. I wanted to protect you, but now I see that I can't hide anything anymore." Victoria felt a knot form in her throat. Then all of this was a hidden truth, and we were just pieces on a board we didn't understand. Ethan nodded. "But that doesn't mean our choices don't matter. What really matters is how we decide to move forward. We can choose how we want our stories to intertwine." His words resonated with Victoria. She realized that although the past was important, the future was in her hands. So, we can rewrite this. We can make our own choices regardless of what was decided before us. The conversation made her reflect on the impact that truth had on her life. The fear that once dominated her was slowly dissipating, giving way to a new understanding. Victoria realized that even in the face of challenges, there was a strength within her that propelled her to face the unknown. The day passed, and as they walked together in the park, talking about their hopes and dreams, Victoria felt a renewed sense of freedom. Beside Ethan, she knew she wasn't alone. Their friendship, now deeper, was a solid foundation on which they could build a future. When night fell and the stars began to shine in the sky, Victoria sat on the grass with Ethan, both looking at the constellations. "You know, the stars have always been there, even when we couldn't see them. Just like the truth about us. Now that we know, we can shine brighter together." Ethan smiled, and his gaze was full of understanding. We are just beginning to understand our light. Vic, whatever happens, we'll be together. Victoria felt a wave of gratitude. The truth, though heavy, had brought a new understanding and a new strength. She was ready to face any challenge that came her way, knowing that the light of friendship and love would guide her. The journey was just beginning, and she was excited to discover what the future held for her and those she loved. Victoria watched the stars shining in the sky, each one reflecting the new hope blossoming in her heart. The conversation with Ethan had been a turning point. The revelation about their interconnected past not only clarified many doubts, but also brought to light a strength she never knew she possessed. Looking at the friend beside her, she realized she was not alone on this journey. As the hours passed, they shared their visions for the future, talking about dreams and plans that once seemed distant. The truth that once felt like a burden was now transforming into fuel for growth. Victoria remembered the struggles she faced, the confusion and fear that paralyzed her. But now, with every word exchanged with Ethan, she felt stronger, more capable of shaping her own story. The reality that her past didn't define her, but could indeed inspire her future, made her reflect on her accomplishments. Every step she took toward this new understanding was a victory. She realized she faced her fears, challenged the expectations, and allowed herself to be vulnerable. This was something she never imagined she could do. The friendship with Ethan, which initially seemed like a simple connection, was now an anchor, a support that helped her navigate unknown waters. Ethan had also changed. The weight of the secret he carried had diminished, and by sharing the truth, he felt lighter. The trust between them grew, and the vulnerability that was once feared became a strong bond. Together, they decided they wouldn't let the promises of the past shape their lives, but would create new promises, a new story that honored their individuality. Victoria smiled at the thought of what was to come. She knew that not everything would be easy. There would be challenges and moments of uncertainty, but now she was certain she could face them with Ethan by her side. The fresh start they both desired was more than a chance to correct mistakes. It was an opportunity for growth and transformation. As they stood up and walked back home, Victoria realized that each step was a symbol of her new beginning. The path ahead might be uncertain, but she was willing to move forward. With renewed courage and Ethan's unwavering friendship, there were no limits to what they could achieve together. She looked at him, her eyes shining with anticipation. "Let's do this, Ethan. Let's build something amazing." Ethan smiled, knowing that together they could face any storm. "Yes, Vic, we are just beginning our journey." And so, with light hearts and open minds, Victoria and Ethan embarked on a future that promised to be filled with new adventures. They learned that truth, even when difficult, can be a catalyst for change. Life is made of new beginnings, and each day offers a new chance to write their own stories. If you've also gone through moments of new beginnings or overcoming challenges, share your experience in the comments. Let's celebrate victories, no matter how small, and support each other in this incredible journey called life. Like and subscribe to not miss more inspiring stories like this. The future is bright, and together we can shine even more. What was the moment that touched your heart the most or left you speechless? We really want to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below and share your reflections with us. Your perspective is essential to us and helps us share even more engaging stories. If you know someone who might be moved by this story, don't hesitate to share the video with them. Let's spread moments that inspire and touch the heart together. And if you're looking forward to more narratives that capture the essence of life and emotion, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. This way, you'll be the first to know when we release new videos that promise to take you on a new emotional adventure. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a like. I really want to read your thoughts about the story in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next exciting story.